So would anyone like to make comments?
Do I need this?
No. This audience is,
I can go out there. Effective use of equipment. My name is Lynn King. I live at 3409 Thornapple. We've been a resident of Martin's Additions in that house since 1999. I'm here to speak against the sidewalk proposal that is currently being considered, I think, for, in particular, our area of Martin's Additions, particularly on Thornapple Street. Personally, I don't see that there is a problem that requires such an expense and such an issue that could be divisive in our neighborhood, bottom line. I mean, there's history there. It was divisive before. And I don't think that, again, that there is a problem that warrants anything to do this. Now, again, if there's a situation where you've had people being injured, or if the Montgomery County Police, who sometimes sit at Thornapple and Belfield, observe a situation that puts people's safety at risk, but it's just, that's not the case. I mean, I walk my dog and have been walking my dog since 1999, and yeah, people blow through the stop signs, but sidewalk's not going to happen. Sidewalk is not going to solve that. That's the bottom line. And you know, it is the curve of the street. It's narrow. People generally take their time. They sort of gun it up the hill, but they generally take their time going down the street because there are cars that are also parked on the street, and those are also what I think slows a lot of the traffic down as well. So in sum, I just, again, I don't think that there's a problem. I don't think that there's been anybody who has been injured as a result of no sidewalk, and I oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you. It would have been a surprise if it weren't divisive. I mean, that's why we keep sort of putting it out and putting it out. So thank you for coming.
No, I'm Pat Pendergast, also of Thornapple Street, and not in favor of the sidewalks. 8 years of building, we have trees, everything else, and the area the sidewalks would go, telephone poles and whatnot. And I know last time I listened to the audio, it seemed that there were people in the room. I think it was Larry and Mrs. Larry reading my email saying that we're all opposed. And you had one person who was in favor who lives on the dead end of Delfield. So you now have more people who are opposed than in favor. And you guys also mentioned
Yes.
that Thornapple isn't completely owned by Martin's Additions.
Right,
So
right.
neither is Summit, neither is the other half of Thornapple,
Right.
the hill. Neither is Cummings, which has sidewalks and the like. So I don't think that's an issue. But I'm really in favor of the one-way traffic going from what would be Chestnut up to Summit, because the things you're talking about with all the cars that are on the one side, they're all part of one side. So everyone coming down has to go in and out of the cars while the cars coming up. So if you had one way, the pedestrians could walk with the parked cars, you know, up and down the hill, and the other cars could go that way and flow around. You know, a lot of people, Taylor's one way that way. So a lot of people, you know, go up and they could go around. So that would be the natural flow instead of having one road two ways, which causes it's the same width as Taylor, but that causes the backup. And the same with the, what do you call it, the school buses and stuff like that coming
Right.
in. That's when it just gets tight.
Right.
So I'd rather, you know, I'd love to see that, and it might help with some of our other safety issues around people blowing through the stop signs. Because a lot of people who blow through the stop signs, no two ways about it. They live in Rollingwood, and they come flying down the hill and they go right through the Delfield stop sign. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? Keith, do you want to give us the weather report?
Okay, Keith Allen, Turner Lane, the weatherman. I gave the winter outlook last month, and that's for a very mild winter and snowfall well below normal. It won't be anything like what we had last winter on January 22nd. It's a matter of fact, I think that all 3 months will feature temperatures of 70 degrees on at least 1 or 2 days for December, January, and February. And it could turn out to be one of the warmest winters ever.
So are you reading what your friends at the Post are saying?
I don't normally read what other people say,
Oh, okay.
because, you know, I think that I've been around here, I've got enough experience to know what I put out is as good, if not better, than anybody else.
Well, you've been really good. You've been really accurate, so we're going with you.
Anyway, Thanksgiving looks like it might be, you know, a little rainy, possibly early, and maybe the rest of the day looks good. 50s, not too cold. Cold is this weekend. Windy and cold after 70 degrees tomorrow, and also on Saturday. We're going to have falling temperatures later in the afternoon Saturday. Blustery and cold on Sunday, and it's going to stay chilly Monday and Tuesday of next week. Thanksgiving looks good. Maybe we get the showers out of here earlier in the day. But anyway, good news for the winter. At least that's what I think.
So the
anyway.
Redskins game will be a cold one on Sunday?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll favor more the Packers kind of weather.
Thanks also for all your help with Halloween, too.
That's my pleasure.
No, it was great. Okay,
Make a note of that.
the audit with an introduction by,
Could I have do?
I'm sure, yes.
I am president of the Chevy Chase Elementary School PTA, and on Monday, the Board of Ed is voting on boundaries for the new middle school. As you know, many people who've raised children in here know, we are zoned for Westland. There's a new middle school that's opening in August, and it looks like, although Chevy Chase Elementary School, Rosemary Hills, and NCC are advocating for a different option, that this new zone for the new boundary study for the new middle school, it looks like it will be Rock Creek Forest and then the Chases. So I don't know if anybody, I mean, this is our community. This is where our kids are going to go. So I can email whomever once the information is out, because it impacts our community.
Is there, I haven't been following this, but I know it's been contentious. What are the issues for the local kids?
The issue for the local kids, and again, I have to preface this, that this is from the position as me as PTA president.
Okay.
The issue that Chevy Chase Elementary has is that it will not balance the diversity between Westland and Rock Creek Forest, Westland and the new middle school. For example, you would have an 18% farms, the free and reduced population at the new middle school, and roughly 5% at Westland. What that translates into, to be perfectly honest with you, is 32 farms kids at Westland. And I mean, it really doesn't have, it's not balanced socioeconomically. Additionally, it's not
No,
balanced.
do you say foreign?
Farms.
Farms.
It's farms. Farms is.
What are farms?
No, farms is.
We're not talking agricultural
No,
workers.
it's children who qualify for free or reduced meals provided by the county because their parents don't have enough income to support their independently.
Okay.
Additionally, you would have imbalance in diversity on African American, for example. At Westland, they would have 59 African American students. And again, you're talking about a school body of over 870. And we just think that's racial isolationism, and they shouldn't be in a cluster that embraces diversity. You should not have such opposing student body compositions.
Okay.
And the other thing too is that you're under the option that the superintendent proposed, you're pushing capacity already for a brand new middle school that we've lobbied since 2010. They will be at capacity in 3 years. 3 years. So while there are plenty of open seats at Westland. So this impacts our community, impacts our kids, it impacts our home prices too. So yeah, it's, you've got issues with balanced diversity, issues with program capacity, the achievement gap issues at the new middle school compared to Westland. And you have a situation where you have kids that will be at Westland who will not see diversity for 9 years until they get to BCC. And then you have these two schools, a very white, affluent Westland and a very diverse new middle school coming together at BCC. And it's not really an experiment that the Chevy Chase PTA wanted to see happen. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to introduce Joe?
Here's our audit man, and they have completed their annual audit of the village for the last fiscal year. And I think I saw copies of it around. Yes, and it will be, if it's not already posted, it hasn't been posted yet on the website.
No.
Previous years are, but it will be. Okay, thank you.
Again, I'm Joe McCatherine, with the firm of Lynch & Schaefer, Warfield & Garrett, principal with the firm. I've been running this audit for a few years. I think Eva.
How long have you been doing? Do you know? I think every copy that I've seen of this is your name on it. Maybe for
At least 10 years.
Yeah.
We have one that we've been doing since 1948.
It's not us.
I haven't been doing it.
Just in case we thought.
But I took that 35-page document and, for your convenience, picked out what I thought were the key issues down to 3 pages this evening. We basically issued 2 reports. One is in front of that. It's our opinion on the financial statements themselves. The second report is a letter addressed to those charged with governance, you, the council, and the chairman. And that second letter.
Are there extra copies if the people want to follow
Here, you can
that are
have-
here?
Distribute my card.
Does anybody want?
Take a look.
I have some extra copies of this.
Okay.
Summary, but
Here's yeah.
Oh, we got it.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
okay. But the separate letter is sometimes referred to as a management letter. It's pretty much standard items in that letter. There's nothing of terrible significance in there. One of the items we're required to disclose are any significant accounting estimates. And the council hadn't made any, but the state made an accounting estimate in arriving at that WIN income tax liability. And that gets adjusted each year as amended income tax returns come in that are assigned to your district. So for instance, it went from $143,000 liability last year. It went up a little bit. It was $129,000 last year, and it went up to $149,000 this year. So that change hit the bottom line just on one set of your statements. Municipalities are a unique animal in that they have 2 sets of statements. Normally we joke with our clients as to which set of books are you going to give us to look at. Well, we have 2 sets of books for governmental accounting. One's basically on your budget basis, which is what everybody understands, and the other is on a full accrual long-term basis, which is what bondholders would typically look at, which you don't have any of that, but we put them in there. And so the WIN liability only affects the one the bondholders are looking at. The WIN liability will not affect your statements until it starts being withheld from your income tax sometime down the road. Happy to point out there were no disagreements we had with Matt or anyone in performing the audit, and there are no difficulties, and we had no internal control findings or risk areas that we thought we should mention. As far as the actual results themselves, your revenues for the year were 25% under budget, or it was $211,000 under budget, and your expenditures were 68% under budget. Basically,
Revenues are over.
over, yeah. And the expenditures were under. The expenditures were primarily under because there were some big street improvement projects that were budgeted that you didn't get off the ground, which is fairly typical, and we have that in most municipalities. It's sometimes the weather gets in the way or contracts get in the way, getting those signed. So,
That will not be the case next year.
the most significant revenue item over budget is always income tax, because that's most of your income, and that was $219,000 over budget. Now, there is there are basically two unusual items, both dealing with income tax. First is the wind income tax liability, which I mentioned, and the second is the state did an audit of the boundaries for income tax purposes in Montgomery County, and either gave money to municipalities that were underpaid or took it away from those that were overpaid. Fortunately, you were on the good side of that. And that's for tax returns from years 2010 to 2014, and they've refunded $257,000 to you this year. Otherwise, your income tax revenue would have been down about 25% for the year. Now, 2015 is still in process, so you'll probably get another check this year, and I don't know what that will turn out to be. I did on page 2 of my summary gave you some of the significant accounts that were over budget under budget on the expenditure side. And as I mentioned, the designated street and sidewalk project was $1.2 million under budget. But every category was under budget. The rest are all pretty insignificant when you look at the budget in total. Looking at this year to last year, your revenues were up 7% and your expenditures were up 9%. But really, you're looking at budget to actual more than you are from year to year. I just like to give you that to see if there's any trends that are growing. Your revenues went from almost $70,000 in 2015 to $1,048,000 this year. And if you see at the bottom there on page 2, those are the wind case adjustments. In 2015, we took $129,000 out of your basically bond issue financial statements, and this year we took another $20,000, and won't affect the fund balance statements until some future year. I gave you a breakdown on page 3 of individual line items that variances from year to year. They're all explained in detail, line by line, in the back of the financial statements on Exhibit V1. We give the budget and the actual for all the significant revenue accounts as well as all the expenditure accounts. And as I mentioned, the expenditures were up 9%. They're pretty much evenly distributed across the budget. Building and permits was up $21,000, for instance. Public safety was up $11,000. Now, it was kind of surprising that snow removal was down with the big storm. So I don't know if the county picked up some of that cost, but I had some municipalities where it was up, and then they filed for FEMA grant money and got money for that.
But we did. We filed for FEMA grant money.
Yeah. The bottom line is you have a strong financial position. Your net position, or basically your assets minus the liabilities, is approximately 4 times your annual expenditures, which is stronger than most organizations your size. Your cash and investments make up 94% of your total assets in 2016 and 92% in 2015. So you're very liquid. If something came up, you have the cash available to spend. And again, the other 2 unusual items was the wind income tax liability. Reduced your net position slightly this year, and it doesn't affect the fund balance until future years. Now, the wind liability, some have looked at it, paying it off, but just having it taken out. I think the state's gone to 20 installments starting in 2019, I think running through 2024. You can do a one-time payoff of that, and I guess avoid interest of about $6,500, bring your liability down from almost $150,000 to $143,000.
So that's the main difference of paying off is the interest liability?
Yeah.
Okay.
And do you have a thought on that?
I don't know. I always think a bird in hand is worth 2 in the bush. You get plenty of cash and you could certainly do it.
Right.
The interest rate appears to be pretty small.
Right.
Especially over 20 quarters. down the road, 2 or 3 more years down the road. So there's certainly no incentive to pay it off currently.
We anticipate this in this next fiscal year, because we are redoing the streets and sidewalks and curbs, and we are going to replace the street lights, that there will be some major hits on that reserve. But it's what we've put that money aside for that. I mean, this isn't
Right.
anything that's a surprise. The only surprise is it's taken us so long to get to it.
Yeah.
So,
The other thing we've reserved against now, since in the current fiscal year, is the WIN, is $150,000 for the WIN money, and we
Yeah.
put that aside in the reserve accounts as well,
Right.
knowing it's an obligation
Yeah.
in the future.
Yeah, your total fund balance is a pretty significant number. Your net position
Yeah.
on Exhibit A1
Right.
is $2.8 million.
Yeah.
And so you only got $1.2 million or $3 million set aside. That still leaves you with a pretty good surplus.
Right. That's our buffer.
Yeah, and your bottom line, you've been on the positive side for the last few years. Your bottom line this year, you had budgeted for a loss of $1.1 million, assuming the capital project went through, and in fact, you ended up with $24,000 on the plus side, so that's a pretty big swing. And I think the prior year, it was about the same number, if I remember
Right.
correctly. So,
well, as I say, we believe
We're spending.
we're going to spend it.
yeah. We have to do it eventually, or otherwise it gets more expensive down the road.
Well, I know, yeah. So,
Good.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
There were no findings.
No findings, no issues, no new financial accounting reporting.
I would add that this audit is required by state law. It's not something we do for the fun of it. But also, there are jurisdictions where managers and council heads have decided there's all this money coming in, they could write a few checks for themselves and put it under some other account until the auditor comes in and says, let's see the invoice for that. And they've gone to jail. So there is a good reason for doing these audits.
Yeah. And all the municipalities must report by November 1 to the state of Maryland, and we file the report electronically for you and then send a paper copy along later.
This is the 990.
Well, they call it a uniform financial report
Okay.
for the state of Maryland, but
Okay.
it's essentially the same revenue and expense items. It's mostly what's on B1 in the back, the budget to action numbers.
Good, thank you.
So is every village is required to have an outside audit?
Yes.
Okay,
State law.
okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much, as always.
My pleasure.
Okay.
Have a nice
Good to
holiday.
see you
Thank
again,
you.
and you too. The appointment of the tree supervisor. I'm happy to announce that Paula Goldberg has agreed to accept the responsibilities of the tree supervisor. And so we just need a motion from the council to appoint her.
I will move to appoint Paula Goldberg.
All in favor? Aye.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, yes.
Thank you for doing this.
That's really good. Okay, the minutes of the last meeting, we approved them by email. I just need a motion.
I will so move
Second,
to approve the minutes.
all in favor? Aye. Oppose? Okay, the draft policy for inclusion in Martin's editions, what tab?
4.
Okay, any problems with the language? Thank you, Paula. Not only for coming, but for
Save our
agreeing.
Thank you. I look forward to my orientation. We'll get you one.
You're going to get some RFPs, when they come in to review.
We're on it.
Okay,
Thank
good,
you.
thank you.
Back and forth.
Is there any questions on the changes that have been made
Well, so this was introduced last
Right.
meeting, and there were some questions about whether or not it was clear that information could be submitted by a resident only.
Right.
So the amendments to the introduced policy is an effort to make it
Clarify.
clear that they must be introduced by a resident and they must meet the other requirements.
Right. Was that a significant change that we have to reintroduce?
Yeah.
So is this the public hearing, or there hasn't been enough time?
No, this is the hearing.
Okay. So are there any comments on the policy number 091601, which is a policy for the contents of the Martin's edition? Basically, what it says is, from our survey, we have been limiting the information in the addition to village news, but there has been, from the survey, a number... Official village news. That there has been a number of associations, people who have wanted there to be more local news in it. And so we have drafted a policy that says that you can submit something if you're a resident of Martin's Editions. And then there are some areas that it has to be confined to. But they have to be in by the 15th of the month, and it's limited to 100 words.
And it can't be advertising for private activities.
For profit.
Right.
For profit.
So, any questions? Do I have a motion to adopt the policy number 091601?
Looks good to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Oppose? Go no.
So it'll be effective December 6th. And do we have a policy register now?
We do have a notebook, and they're posted on the website.
The Rollingwood sign request.
Okay, we got a request back in July.
Yes. We're speedy, if nothing else.
From the Rollingwood Citizens Association. It is not a municipality, but is a locally organized group, to put up signs announcing that you are now entering Rollingwood, but the signs would be on various poles and appurtenances in the village. And the request was that we put these signs in. So as you are leaving the Village of Martin's Edition and entering Rollingwood, you would see the sign entering Rollingwood or something of that sort. And the request was that we approve such signages. Some of them are on poles, traffic poles and sign poles that are ours. Others, though, are on utility poles that we do not control.
Right.
I don't know who controls putting up signs on utility poles, if anyone. So I don't see any downside, any negative aspect to this.
But I don't understand if we have any authority to say no. I mean, I think it was very polite of them to ask us, but...
Well, if it's a traffic sign a traffic pole that we have erected,
okay.
then we have authority. If it's a utility
It's
pole.
village right of way.
And on the village right-of-way. One of their suggested ones is not even in the village, it's in Rollingwood.
But this is one under a stop sign, is that even legal?
That's my question. I want to hear, this is one that's
Yeah.
under a sign that's showing a stop sign is going to come at the next intersection.
Right.
So I want to know from Joe
Joe Cutro.
Whether that's even...
whether that's legal, but also and then our police officers may, weigh in on, there's a point at which clutter becomes a problem and you miss the point of the stop sign.
Right.
Why would we even add more clutter in our neighborhood for someone else's neighborhood? I don't want
Well,
their signs. They put their sign on their side. Screw them.
They're looking for the,
I mean, seriously, we don't, anyone advertise their neighborhood, they're in their neighborhood, but it's, you know, when you go from Maryland to Virginia, when you enter Virginia, welcome to Virginia. It doesn't come on this side of the river, thank God.
And where, I don't know where all of our signs are. Are all of our signs
in the
The
village.
one on Thornapple is right where you start Martin's Edition.
where you start Martin's Edition?
Its own pole that says welcome to Martin's Edition.
So our advice back is use your own poles and put it in your own area.
Over there, there's signs that say, for the snowplow guys,
Yeah.
it says you're now leaving county property, you know, you can't, don't plow any further.
Right.
And that, I'm sure, is on their property. But why would we have enough signs?
Well, it's as a convenience and as a courtesy to neighboring.
Yeah, but I don't know whose convenience that is. If someone's wandering around looking for rolling wood, I mean, you live here. I mean, we all live here. I just don't see the need, because I'm one who lives on one of the streets that you're putting signs that advertise Section 5 or anybody else, but why? They want to put up a sign, put it on their side.
Will anybody feel as strongly as Pat?
Because they may want to put a pole in the ground, you know, someone's got to mow around.
Well, they've sent pictures of where they want to put it, and as I say, there's one picture where it's under a stop sign. One picture, is this under the 20?
It's on the speed limit sign, which again is,
I just think is a problem.
yeah, and
I think it would be easiest just to say that they are welcome to put the signs on their property to say you are entering. It doesn't have to be opposite our sign. I mean, is there something wrong with it?
Say that again?
they can do whatever they want.
They can do whatever they want in their own, in Rollingwood, but you know that we just don't want clutter. That it sounds like what they want to do is put it on the other side of the Martin's Edition sign, but they're not even doing that. I mean, they're scattered.
Well,
It's situationally different because we don't have signs in every
Right.
border.
They're taking wherever the convenient post or pole is.
Without adding a pole,
Right.
is what they want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I believe we added that pole on Thornapple. I believe there's one that says that, entering Tree City, USA, something like that. You come down there. So we actually took the time and wanted to put in a pole. Do it right.
There's one on Summit where there says Village of Martin's Edition on one side, and they would have Rolling Wood on the other. And I can't see it.
Thornapple?
That's on a utility pole. Again,
on a
utility pole,
utility
utility pole,
Yeah.
utility pole. So the two things that appear to be, or three. One on Thornapple behind an existing VMA sign.
Well, here's one
One on
affixed.
Cummings and one
sorry.
on, and yeah, just one on Cummings.
And this one where they're affixing it behind a neighborhood watch sign, I
That's
think
not even
again-
ours. It's not ours.
That's not our street.
It's our street.
Right, no, but I just have a question about it. Okay,
So, I guess two questions. So, is it even worth me asking Joe and the police, or are we saying no? And then, I also, I mean, isn't sort of the idea you would be driving on the right side of the road, so to have a sign on the left side saying entering Rollingwood would not really be, I mean, it's not really.
We have Martin's Edition sign that if you're turning right, they're on the left-hand side of the road.
Yeah, that's true. But anyway, so should
Yeah.
I ask Joe and the police officers, or is
so how, do
the
you feel
answer.
strongly about, you're the
I
one
don't
who's
feel
been
strong. I
talking.
think it would be a courtesy to neighboring. But they're not a jurisdiction. They're like a homeowners association. So it's not as though it's not a town or city.
It's not a recognized municipality
Yeah.
with taxing authority.
Right.
Well, you talked to the guy.
I didn't talk. I just received the email and replied to him.
So it looks like we're down to only like 2 or 3 signs potentially total, 2 of which appear to be on traffic signs, which we have expressed concerns about, and one which we would not likely see because it is proposed to be on the other side of a sign that's already existing. So the question.
Well, I don't think we ought to be spending money to do their legal issues. I think that we can reply to them that we have serious question about the legality of that, and they might want to check that out, of putting their sign on other, like stop signs, road signs. I mean, I just think that's a serious, I'm not sure that they can do that, but I don't think we are responsible for finding that out for them. And so,
or is Arthur going to email the gentleman back, or are you going to email the?
no, I was going to let Arthur,
I'm not gonna-
I was so
I just-
happy that's in your court.
No, I just happened to have seen it and nobody had responded. I thought we should come up with something.
So, but what if they come back and say, yep, it's legal?
Yeah.
Well, that's fine then.
Okay.
I mean, we would like the signs to be in Rollingwood. And there's 3 exceptions to that, is that what you're saying?
What they're proposing, there are only 3 that would be, from what I can gather, these pictures, there are only 3 that would be in Martin's Editions.
And are those on legal signs, or?
I don't know the answer to that question.
What do you mean there's only 3?
So this Cummings
three.
Lane, it's the same sign, just twice they took the picture.
Yeah, from both sides.
But it's under the stop sign, which
It's
has
under
a question.
there's a stop sign coming sign. It's not even a
Yeah,
stop
it's a
sign.
warning sign.
So
Well, I still think
it's
there's a
ours.
legal issue.
Then there's one Cummings Lane going the opposite direction on a speed limit sign.
Okay.
Shepherd's a utility pole. It's not our decision. We don't
Right.
own the utility pole. Thornapple is the one they're saying they want to affix it behind an existing sign.
It should be fine.
Utility pole,
The utility poles that are in Martin's Editions, they're likely owned by Pepco. So you would need approval from Pepco, but also from the village, because we can still regulate signs in our right-of-way, even if it's on a private utility.
so they would need to go to Pepco even, like we can't, this is not our decision solely.
Right, it's not our sole decision.
So
And the rest, these are all on utility poles. After that, so they're on utility poles or not in Martin's.
And Brookville Road, State Road. And the last one is out of our jurisdiction.
The Woodsley Drive.
yeah,
And that's the one that they're putting behind the neighborhood watch sign.
yeah.
But no, there are 2 that are behind proposed signs. I'm ignoring the one that's not in Martin's Editions completely.
So affixed to the utility pole behind are, so that it's going to say welcome to.
Rolling wood on the other side.
It's this one. We have a sign, I guess, that there must be like a
Okay.
Martin's Editions on this side. They want to put one on that side of the post. So it'd be like a sandwich. The post is
Right,
sandwiched by
right,
2 sides.
I got it.
Food analogy.
Right. Well, I just
we already-
don't have enough feeling about it. I mean,
Arthur's going to call him back and tell him we have serious concerns. Not highly likely.
right.
They're going to spend a lot of time and energy to convince us.
And Pepco and the state and,
Am I going to do it? I think Matt should do it. I think Matt should.
okay.
Say it was
Matt can
discussed.
do it and then
was
work with,
discussed.
if there's, you can have Ron review it or,
There was one other, while we're talking about village signs, I think we should be renewing all of you are entering Martin's Edition signs. Many of them are kind of decrepit and difficult to see, and I've seen one. Let the record be shown that there was one nodding of head
Yes,
in
I agree.
assent.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Joe had a list of
Enthusiastically.
signs that needed to be updated.
Okay.
So perhaps just have him resend the list of signs. I know that Katya has expressed, and we agreed in the past to also just refreshing whether it's painting or replacing some
right.
of the wooden signs.
right.
But as far as like traffic signage, Joe has a list. And then the other ones, you guys, I think, might have to make your own.
Okay, are we done with that? And moving on to financial matters.
Good shape. We still haven't gotten, we don't usually get our major income tax payment until the end of November. And as the auditor noted, there's been a lot of fluctuations and uncertainty in what's been going on. As long as the stock market is going up, we do okay. So we still don't know what our income tax is going to be. We have made our first payment from our reserve accounts into the repaving,
Right.
and that will be moving forward. So we're in good shape.
Okay.
I just want to note something that Arthur wrote, and it's going to go out in the newsletter to residents. But I think it's something that we should have in mind. Although we are spending the large amounts of the reserve that we had, as always planned, there was a note in his audit
On the auditor.
thing that's going to go out to residents that just talks about how our property taxes are one main revenue source, and it's the only thing we really have control over. But we've continued to increase it. It says it's been adjusted to reflect changes in the underlying assessment of the village property. Once we get past these large capital projects, I think that we should revisit
Right.
the property tax
Right.
rate so that we can decrease it as appropriate, so we're not running $400,000 surpluses each year.
I think I say there that we had increased it several years ago from practically zero to meet the revenue shortfalls. Yeah, I agree with that. We don't want to be running huge surpluses forever into the future.
Okay. I need a motion to accept the financial report as presented.
Move to accept
Second.
presented.
Aye.
Tiffany seconds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Close. Okay, Matt.
All right.
We have never had you start your report
I know.
this early in life.
What's going on? All right. So the audit, we got the presentation, but staff's been working with Linton, Schaefer, Warfield, and Garrett just to help put that together and working with our accountant. The second administrative matter, I might be tossing this over to you, Richard, possibly, but the redesign and furnishing proposal that the office got in December of 2015. Do we have that? Did we include that? No. Okay. Well,
I think we need to open that up again, and we can do that in the December meeting.
okay.
And send out the proposals and how much of it we're interested in doing, if any of it. But, one of the things I'm sensitive to is that designer and the architect came in and did a lot of work for us, and I think we have to make some decisions about whether we're going to act on it, so that at least I can respond to say yes or no, we're going to do something or we're not doing something.
And since you and Beth are now, Beth is going to have been here for a year, you're going to have been here for 6-7 months, right? But I would really like to know what you guys think about any changes that you made. I mean, we do not want Beth's desk to fall, so let's get that taken
let's get
care of.
that.
Like that's, there's been enough duct tape used to solve that problem. But as you look at the plans, please look at the function of the office and what do you need, and how it works, because you're here every day. So whatever we do needs to work for you guys.
Right. Great. All right. Community events. We had the holiday party, October 30th. Went really well. Thanks again to Keith, who did a lot of work in helping to plan and store stuff, and he provided electricity and restroom facilities, and just helped in pretty much every aspect of it. So thanks again to Keith. Also, thank you to Holly Worthington, who she led the parade down Turner Lane, and she also helped with crafts throughout the party, and really made it a fun event. And also thanks to Beth, who really sort of took the lead on planning the party and booking the vendors, and making sure that everything went smoothly.
And it did.
And it did. It was fun. It was a fun party. The next thing is the holiday fund, so we're going to send out an email after we get back from Thanksgiving. And also printing and mailing from Spectrum to ask residents for the annual donations for our waste management folks, collecting money for them and giving them a little holiday thank you. Website, nothing really exciting. It was about average, up from the summer when nobody visits the website, but down from around election time, village election time, when we get more page views. I did want to address that the website went down for a couple hours last Saturday, which was kind of embarrassing. We came back to figure out what was happening. There was a banner saying that the website was down.
Russian hackers.
Trying to
That was
influence
my-
the election in
That
March
was my
edition.
initial thought, but as it turned out, we were told by Calvert Designer, or website host, that we had unpaid invoices going back to 2013 and 2014, which some of them, when we looked at our records, matched up, and some of them didn't. But we did have some unpaid invoices going back a ways.
But they suddenly discovered them.
Right. It was
without any notice.
It was sort of suspiciously timed right after we had issued an RFP for the website, and also it was also a little bit frustrating because we do receive an invoice every month that it has never indicated that we had 3-year-old invoices that were unpaid. It just says the same balance due, and
Have they been paid?
now they have.
But some of those that they said, right, some of the things that they said we owed had been paid.
That was the other
There was
thing.
there was a mix.
They shut
So
the
you're
website
confident-
down without...
Yes,
Without
any
notification.
notice, on a
And put a
Saturday.
thing on the website that says call billing about this. No, they did. They were really jerks. No, it was.
And you think they want our
Really?
business?
Yeah, so
That's why.
So they endeared themselves in
Yeah, that's
this
a great
run up
way to
to a
get
new
it.
bid.
yeah. So
So we're done though.
We're
We
caught
have
up now,
on paper
so-
from them that we have paid our bills, so that there can't be any future. Okay.
yes, so we're caught up now with that, and the website's back up and running. Just a reminder again, I think I include this every time, that we have somebody in the office from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Usually Beth or myself is here a little bit earlier than that, if you want to stop by or call the office. If you're outside of regular office hours, I have access to the village email, and Beth does as well, in a limited capacity. That's why on Saturday, for example, we were able to come in and figure that out.
Thanks for taking care of it.
So it might not be as prompt as during weekdays, but outside of regular office hours, you can still reach us. The newsletter, the next one, we hope to be going out next week. And we're looking into ways to make it more readable if people want to print it out and read it that way. Most of the templates we've found have, like, even if you look at the Washington Post, a lot of it is like the headline, a little blurb, and you have to click read more or something. So we're trying to figure out some way to get around that, what is kind of the norm, but haven't had much luck yet. But one thing is that this might come up in negotiations with the new website, web design, to see what sort of solutions they might have to offer as well. So. We have a new segment in the newsletter provided by Keith Allen. So we're going to have a sort of look ahead at the weather with our resident weather guy.
I think that's a great idea.
So thanks again.
Thank you
Keith,
for doing that,
for providing that. Some contracts things that been going on. Arborist and the aforementioned website, RFP, they've both been issued. They're on our website. They're on the Maryland Municipal League website, and both are open through this month. I've heard back from a couple companies that have expressed interest about our website, and I forwarded the Arborist RFP to Paula, and as well as our current arborist, Paul Wolf. So we should have some off.
Is the arborist RFP also on the RFP as well as the classifieds page or whatever you identified that might have been? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
I'm not communicating clearly, but
yeah, I can.
For your consideration.
Yeah. I can see what they're. I don't know if they have restrictions on that, but I'll look into that and see if we can post that.
Since they have 2 pages, one that seems more like a large contractor and one that seems more like an individual.
Yeah.
To see if they'll let it be posted in both places. So.
And then the second, or I guess third item under contracts is, I was going to recommend that start putting together an RFP for a new surveyor and GIS company that we work with, contractor. We've had some ongoing communication issues with our current contractor, AMT, and we have a contract that's old. It's about 9 years old, and I think that it might just be it goes on in perpetuity. So I think it's due to be revisited, and we have basically it's written in to do an annual or biennial update for a fixed amount, and they're not providing it at that amount. Basically, is sort of the long and short of it, and I don't know if.
So you've reached the point of not wanting to hold their feet to the fire under the current contract. You're ready just to go find somebody.
Yeah.
Or put it out there for other people.
Yeah, or actually, Doug Lohmeyer and I sat down with a company that he'd worked with before, CPJ, to just see, as an example, what else is out there, what kind of services and technological offerings they have. And it at least gave me the impression that we should at least explore what other companies have to offer. If AMT, maybe my expectations are not fair, and AMT's proposals that they are giving us are perfectly in line with what they should be. But I think this would let us evaluate it.
And you said the one you talked to does work for some of the other local towns?
That's right, yeah. I think Section 5 and Chevy Chase View, I think they do work for. And they were even helpful. They offered us, they just set a couple websites that we can use for free that would help us in determining different things related to land usage and things like that we've never heard from AMT. So it was fruitful in that way too.
And I think too, just to tie it into our trees, which we have a new tree supervisor, getting that sort of information into the survey so that no matter who's here, the next person can pick it up and use it for their job is important.
Yeah. And I think that it would kind of be in line with what we're doing with formalizing a lot of the contracts and contractors that we have according to our charter. So that was my recommendation.
Do it.
Great. We ordered a new copier from Rico. Our copier we had, we actually went through, I think it was, 2 weeks ago, Beth, that apparently the hard drive on it just died. And we had a lot of issues figuring out how to get the scanner to work because it was tied into our old Verizon account that Verizon doesn't even really have records for. It was kind of a mess. But it's so we're getting a new copier. It'll actually cost us less per month than the one that we're currently using. So it's kind of a no-brainer. We are still working on records retention, so we're creating an inventory of old building plans to send to Maryland State Archives.
The only thing I would say about before, we might want to figure out the survey issues and whether or not any of those surveys would be helpful to input
useful.
into the new before you send them to the archives. Because if you
That's
send them to
thought,
archives,
yeah.
then we have to go get them
Yes,
back.
that's a good thought. Okay. The village police are going to write an article for the newsletter about preventing package theft for the holiday season for us. Street cleaning. I have scheduled 2 street cleanings before winter hits. Originally we were going to do one, and I think the first one's going to be right after Thanksgiving. And that actually works out well with the concrete work that's doing, because they said to get the leaves out of the way would allow them to put the sealer on better and to make sure that it's covering as much of the surface area of the concrete. So we'll do that, and then maybe one more in mid-December if just to get the last of the leaves that fall, because there's a lot of leaves on the ground, but there's also still a lot of trees that have leaves right now. We received today, finally, agreements for reimbursement for the road repairs. One was I was apparently one of them was already signed, so I didn't know why they couldn't have sent this to us before, but we should be getting. So all of the north end work that WSSC had done back in 2012, I think, the agreement had already been signed. They sent over today the new one to be signed for the south end work. So I'm just gonna send it over to Joe Cutro to take our engineer to.
Is this, we already got a check from
we got one from Washington Gas.
from Washington Gas?
So
okay.
now we have.
This is- okay.
Now we're getting a check from.
And so how much are
WSSC.
those?
So what they had sent us was the south end was I think just under $60,000, and then the north end was 130-some thousand. Seemed a little low to me.
South end,
But
Quincy along.
yeah. So I was going to talk to Joe and see sort of, does this look right to you, or what kind of wiggle room we got here to negotiate with them before we just sign it. And speak of the devil, WSSC is coming back to do sewer main work in parts of Martin's Additions, because apparently the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing over there, so they couldn't have done it all at once. So they'll be coming back to Quincy, about half of Raymond Street, Chestnut, and Thornapple from Summit to Delfield. So,
Good, right?
yeah.
We know it's coming.
Yeah. So I just heard from their contractor, Phoenix Engineering, so I sent over sort of our template permit for them to do work, and after
Are they tear up the road and dig out stuff, or are they just cleaning out the house, you know?
they'll be tearing up the road. The sewer is actually below the water main because you want your you want the sewer dripping into the water. So yep, they're going all the way down to the sewer and replacing some of that.
So they're gonna dig around the pipe that they just installed.
Right, exactly. Right. As I said, left hand, right hand, not necessarily
Yes.
in communication.
But the good news is that the new survey that we will put out an RFP for, who's gonna show all of this, so the next time somebody wants to come in, the village manager will be in a position to say, hey.
It's just gonna be messy when they start building that house next door, and these guys are doing their thing.
Do it all at once.
It was one way with you.
We should get Joe on that.
So we'll be setting up a meeting with them after Thanksgiving to see, more specifically what their plans are. There is on WSSC's website, they have a sort of in your neighborhood thing that people can, if you just Google WSSC in your neighborhood, it has a GIS map of the area and it will show the segments that they'll be replacing the sewer main. Street lighting. This it just seems like it always gets pushed back and back and back. So apparently the part numbers are not going to be created until the new year. So Pepco's engineers.
I can give them a part number.
That's why I didn't understand why it was. They have the parts and they need to apply some number for their system to these specific lights, and I don't really understand why it takes them
about 6 weeks to put a number.
Right, exactly. And then so once they're done with that, they'll then create the design to order the lights, which again, I'm not really sure. We had hired a lighting consultant, and I thought that was partially to design the new lights, but then they will create the parts in January, and then hopefully start them by April. Installing them by April. But I did start emailing. Apparently right now the holdup is the supplier, so I emailed the guy and to see what kind of expedition can be done on it. So hopefully we can, but I don't know how big of a difference. It might be able to push it up a couple weeks, but it's probably not going to happen until at the very earliest, the end of winter or beginning of spring.
I think what they're engineering isn't the light itself, but it's the all the fixtures to put them up on the pole. That is the last time when they put up the prototypes. That in a sense they were always running into a problem. They have the right bolts, the things didn't fit, the stanchions were too short. And we thought they were supposed to go up and install them. Again, it took the same. It didn't take 6 weeks, but it took time after time of coming up with new parts and new things to get it done. So that's
I think it's great that you're following up with them. If they actually do, if that helps them actually begin in April, then I would consider that a win for us.
Yeah, I mean, at least we're at least making tangible progress, even though if it's at a snail's pace.
So does that mean the new poles are not going to be installed? The ones in the locations that were identified as needing new poles?
They still will be.
They're going to be installed before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But how can they put lights on them if they haven't got lights?
Well, they're going to install them when they put in the lights, I guess.
Okay, so the new poles will not be installed ahead of,
I see
as
what you're
part
saying.
of the whole operation, right?
Right, yes. It's all one big order that we put in.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Streets and sidewalks, so we've completed concrete work on Bradley and Melville and the dead end of Raymond, as well as Cummings, and tomorrow they're finishing up Shepherd. So I just wanted to say thank you to all the residents for adhering to the posting posted, no parking signs. I know it does create some hardship, and there's not always an easy place to park, so by and large people have been really accommodating and done a really great job of allowing the workers to do what they need to do in the areas that they need to do it. So they're going to start, they're going to finish up on Shepherd and do cleanup, and then they'll begin again on Turner. They're not going to do any work next week during Thanksgiving. Kind of twofold reasoning for that. They have another job that they need to finish up before they spend the rest of the season over here, as well as we have a lot of residents that had expressed that they had people visiting or things like that. So especially the prospect of not being able to use their driveway, for example, for 3 days, the 3 days before Thanksgiving. As much as we want to get through it as quickly as possible, it sort of made sense to at least give people that holiday break. So the actual street repaving will be done in the spring. So this will avoid us having to redo and pay for twice the same work after WSSC comes up and tears up the streets again. And also the leaves create more of an issue apparently for the structural stability of asphalt more so than concrete. So seasonally, it also makes sense. Then also a lot of asphalt plants just close in the next couple weeks through winter. On Quincy Street, we finished up today. A little bit of tidying up because that street is being largely ignored because of the WSSC coming back through. So what we did was we repaired the Washington gas trench, which was failing, and were put in and seemed to be failing more quickly than the WSSC trenches. So we repaired that and then just milled about a ½ inch off the street just to ease any potholes and just make the surface a little bit smoother through the winter so that plows aren't catching potholes, people's cars aren't hitting potholes, things like that. Once WSSC is all finished, we'll go back and get to the streets that I had mentioned before that WSSC is coming back to. And we're thinking that the project's probably going to come to about $800,000 when it's all said and done, which after we get reimbursed and considering our reimbursement that we've already received from Washington Gas, we should end up within
on the money.
within what we had budgeted for it. Some of our residents also took advantage of being able to piggyback off of a little bit cheaper prices, save a little bit of money. AB Veers redid a couple of people's driveways since they're already in the area. And then the last thing is the north end sidewalks, which...
Before you do that, just sanitation issue that was raised.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that's taken care of for the rest of the project. Did you guys come to an agreement
Yep,
on
we
that?
did. Yep.
Okay.
So they're just going to follow through every street, and they have...
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is that?
So there was an issue with where to store a porta potty, and they're just going to move it along every street where they are. So I brought this. It was brought up before, but I asked Doug Lohmeyer to take a look at sort of evaluate where it could possibly make sense to add sidewalk in the north end. And what he had identified was that possibly instead of trying to do it all at once or looking at all of it, that there was an opportunity to maybe put a sidewalk on the south end of Delafield and maybe a little bit to connect it to the dead end of Delafield. there's already sidewalk about a third of the way up on the east side of it, and there are
Of Delafield.
of Delafield. And there are fewer trees and other pieces of landscaping in that area that would be affected by putting in sidewalk. When I also talked to Joe Cutro, he thought that this would be a good sort of trial run solution and would be a way to connect the south end sidewalk system to the north end in some way. See if people are using it, if it makes a difference.
If you haven't already scanned and emailed that to us, would you send it? I'd just like to go walk it.
Yeah.
With the map in hand.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
So there's a couple of, it basically just follows the right-of-way area on what is where the curb meets the yard or people's front property lines. There's a couple bump out spots where there's 2 trees in each respective bump out spot, and so rather than trying to go over roots and disrupting it in that way, there was an opportunity to bump out a little bit.
This is all within the right of way.
It's all within the right of way.
Yep.
So there's a couple, there are some other logistical things that would go into it about possibly turning, because there'd be a bump out, maybe you'd want to turn Delafield into a one-way street there. The other option would be to just not put in a sidewalk and to make Delafield a one-way street and to leave a sort of bike lane or walking lane on one part and put a white line down the street. So those were some of the other ideas that were floated around.
Has anyone from Delafield on that block asked for a sidewalk?
Sorry?
Has anyone on that one block of Delafield actually asked for a sidewalk? Just someone on the dead end asked for a sidewalk.
We'd gotten, mostly requests from people on the dead end to somehow connect.
Let's pave the dead end first.
Well, the idea was to connect the dead end and give them a way to walk down to the
You would
market.
expect no sidewalk on the dead end.
Well, there's less through traffic going through the dead end, though.
Just imposing something on other neighbors that
It's
don't.
not imposing, it's giving them a new privilege of having a sidewalk.
I would like a sidewalk on the dead end of Delafield where I walk my dog.
Put it down, we'll put it down.
I'm also, yes, I think it's good. This is helpful to see it again. I also don't know the parking situation right now in Delafield.
Right.
I don't remember.
That's the other thing is that I haven't had a chance to look at the parking
It's on both
in.
sides.
It's on both sides.
I know it is on both sides,
Okay.
but to see what kind of disruption that would cause to parking.
Why would it cause disruption to parking?
I don't know how many people have driveways versus.
I think when we
Parking counts
talked
versus
to
whatever.
Joe, I
I'll go
think
look at
that this idea of Thornapple being one way and
Yes.
and then asking him at least about doing it with all of those streets, with Delafield, Chestnut. I mean, Summit already is one way.
No, Taylor.
Taylor.
There is.
Summit's two ways.
Some is two ways.
Summit is
Not-
two ways.
Is it where we are?
Over there it is.
Yeah.
You can go up and down.
I thought it was all one way. How do you get to it? Because
If you drive down Summit, you can turn around and go back
Okay,
up.
okay.
So that this design on that part of Delafield would cost about $40,000. We got an estimate from A.B. Beers, about $40,000 to install sidewalk there. That would probably be the cheapest of any street too, because there's already sidewalk on a third of the street, and there is less landscaping and less trees, less things in the way that would otherwise have to be affected. So that's sort of where we are with that. We can evaluate the other streets and see what it would look like.
I
I'd
think
be-
Richard said, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'd be more interested in looking at the one-way and seeing if that's a solution.
Okay.
Even if it included Summit, I don't know why. Would that be really
Wouldn't do that,
It's
because
more or less one way, because not many people go the other way.
Okay,
There's that blocking us to go.
okay. Okay,
exploring the one-way
right.
Thornton.
Great. Bulk trash happened last Saturday. I think it went off largely without a hitch, which was nice.
I will have to say, though, that on Bradley, had I not run out and screamed at them to stop, they went 45 miles an hour down Bradley, or so it seemed, and there was stuff out, and they were just going right by, and so we got them to back
really?
up and pick it up, yeah.
Huh.
They are, I don't know quite, I mean, they really go fast. They did, at least.
Well, that's a good thing for Matt to know, so that he can say
Yeah.
our village chairman literally had to go out and stop the truck.
Right,
So
they would be
put
well
himself-
aware. Listen, I'm yelling down the street, but it worked.
formidable.
Yes, by gosh.
So the next bulk trash will be January of 2017. Just a reminder that if folks, we got a lot of emails and calls about oversized or large bulk items, or having more than 6 or having a lot of items. So that's really helpful to us and to Waste Management so that they can send the appropriate size truck and type of truck to pick up those items. So that's everything on mine, and then Doug Lohmeyer has his administrator's report. There's nothing really, there's, I guess the big item, I would, I'm wondering if this is a legal question that I should just ask legal counsel.
3505 Raymond.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll let you talk to Don about that.
But on Taylor Street, there's a couple houses that have that I'm trying to get in touch with them to. There's a retaining wall that looks like it's collapsing, and then there's another one that they put in a new. What did they put in a new retaining wall? I think, and there's kind of a dip, and they poured new concrete. It looks like, and there's a dip there of where the sidewalk ends, and then between the sidewalk and their retaining wall, so that might present some challenge. So. Might be good to get them to fix it. On Brookville Road here, they finally fixed there's a storm drain that they made it they didn't leave enough room for water or anything to get in, so they came in and they made it bigger, so they finally fixed that. And those were kind of the big ticket items.
The sidewalks on Brookville Road,
Yes.
are we responsible for them?
We are, yeah. So we
There's
didn't-
no curbing, there's just and they're all chipping away and crumbling.
Yeah, we do need to evaluate those. We didn't do it this time.
Yeah, I was wondering.
It was more of a time crunch thing because it's a little bit a lot more extensive just because of the traffic maintenance and traffic control that would occur.
And we probably would have to make significant changes for compliance issues, so just keep that in mind when it is
Yes,
time
that's
to
the
do
other
it.
thing is that
where, the
We've-
corners?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to put
ADA
Size,
compliance, yeah.
barriers.
Yeah, the general good practice is if you're making any alterations to bring it up to ADA compliance. So there's quite a few ramps and things there that.
And we probably have to widen it significantly in certain places, which would mean going into the right-of-way on some properties. Not an issue, just things to be aware of.
Yeah. So that's mostly it.
I
Yeah.
don't know why the right-of-way is on Brookville. Whether, there's retaining, whether it goes up past the retaining walls or what. I don't know. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, very good. Okay, any comments, questions? All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
But are we entering into a closed session?
Are we? Did you get what you were supposed to get?
Do you want to talk to me or the whole council? Well, the whole council.
Two separate issues.
Probably the.
Two separate issues.
Oh, okay.
He has one issue from the building report for you. Thanks, guys, for coming. Thank you.
Good night.
He has a question on that, and then he has a question.
Did you
We
get
have a
your stuff
question.
from,
It's a
Wayne?
contract issue that
Oh.
did you get?
Yes.
You got what you were supposed to get?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have that
We don't have
issue.
to do any
Okay, we don't have to, we do not need a closed session.
Right.
Okay.
All in favor of adjourning?
Yo!
Oppose? Yay!